Well, guys, you know what? The situation is getting critical with Deutsche Bank. Uh, Deutsche Bank's getting to the point right now where failure, unless something happens, that probably within the next 60 days, failure is imminent. Their stock price is rolling over and going down every single day as we speak. They have a huge derivatives book, you know? And anybody out there that can try to tell you that they know where these derivatives are going to fall when the penny drops, when Deutsche Bank falls and collapses, these derivatives will run through the system at the speed of light. Basically, they run through the internet, and the $44 trillion derivatives book, even though the nominal value, a lot of these derivatives cancel each other out. Still, the value after they cancel each other out could still be in maybe 50 billion or 100 billion running through the system. And it's going to land on the doorstep of other banks. But nobody knows which banks until the derivatives go down. Once the derivatives go down and they melt down, then the ramifications of Deutsche Bank collapsing then become made manifest. Until that happens, they're not made manifest, the damage that it'll do. It's almost like if a warehouse were to burn down, you don't know exactly what that fire is going to do, and the derivatives are like that. As they implode on each other, these derivatives, you don't know the cascading effects that they're going to have within the banking system until after it's over. Anybody that tells you that says that they know exactly what banks are going to be involved in everything is lying until it happens. Once it happens, then you can see the after effects, of exactly what the damage is going to be, or the fallout. And can that fallout be contained easily? What I see this as being similar to is very similar to the 2008 crisis. If Deutsche Bank goes down, what we're going to see is something very similar to the 2008 financial crisis. It could actually be larger than the 2008 financial crisis. And yes, of course, this is going to affect the stock market. And do they have the stock markets back? The Federal Reserve does have the stock markets back. This will force the hand. If Deutsche Bank goes down, this is going to force the hand of the world's central banks into a different type of monetary policy than they're in right now. Everything's going to change. Now, how will this affect, if Deutsche Bank goes down, how is this going to affect gold? How is this going to affect silver? And how is this going to affect Bitcoin? Well, Deutsche Bank going down would be a deflationary event. But normally, under normal circumstances, commodities and stuff suffer. They lose value during a deflationary event under normal circumstances. Gold and silver and cryptocurrencies are not your ordinary commodities. These commodities are more related to money. And in a deflationary event, money takes on a more significant value. In other words, pure liquidity. Cryptocurrency, gold and silver, are your purest forms of liquidity. And because they're not an ordinary, normal commodity, they're actually liquidity, just like the dollar itself. It's a little bit actually hard to predict which way they will turn and when in price. It could very well be sometimes gold and silver, because they are actually liquidity, and the banks now accept gold anyway, as a tier 1 asset class on their books because of Basel III. Everything's changed now. And so it's very possible in a deflationary event like Deutsche Bank would actually cause, it's entirely possible that gold and silver could actually move up in price rather than down. It's entirely possible. And how long will the deflation last? If we get Deutsche Bank going down, I don't see the deflation that would cause, just like the 2008 crisis when we had Lehman Brothers go down and we had the situation happen and Henry Paulson came in and everything. They started the stimulus programs big time. The deflation didn't last that long. More or less, it was only really a threat of deflation. It wasn't any serious deflation before they reacted, and then they moved the money in the opposite direction. And the only reason why the velocity of money actually slowed down after they started quantitative easing was because of something called a liquidity trap. Now, why I'm talking about what happened in the past is because this event, if it occurs, with Deutsche Bank going down, is going to be a very similar event, and it's going to have a similar impact. And the behavior of the financial system in reacting to this event is going to be very similar to 2008. So we do have a precedent. Precedent's already been set. Even though the situation is a little bit different, or changed, it's not the same as 2008. It has very much similarities to 2008, and the response to it is going to be similar to what happened in 2008. So what we look at a very short period of deflation when the bank actually goes down and the collateral damage would go out through the financial system and the markets would basically take a nosedive, and that wouldn't last very long. Maybe a few weeks or a couple months, and then they're going to come in and they're going to completely change monetary policy, and they're going to try to pump the system back up again, like they did after 2008. I can tell you 100% sure that once they change monetary policy and they come in and they have to repump the system up with liquidity, I can tell you for sure that gold and silver and cryptocurrencies will go up then. That's a sure thing. But before that happens, when the crisis first happens, the stock market rolls over, we get a period of deflation. What effect will that have on gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies? That I'm a little bit uncertain of. But it's entirely possible that gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies will actually do rather well in a period of deflation with the market being shocked by Deutsche Bank rolling over. Okay? So I'm not completely sure exactly what will happen immediately after Deutsche Bank goes down. The effects it would have on gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies. I'm not exactly sure. They could actually lose value or gain value. I'm not sure. I'm not going to tell you guys I know exactly what would happen if Deutsche Bank goes down to gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies immediately. But I can tell you what will happen in the long term. Once the central banks respond to Deutsche Bank going down, then gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies will go up once they respond. How long will that response take? It possibly depends upon the severity of the calamity that Deutsche Bank going down causes. The bigger the calamity, the quicker the response, because the crisis will be that much worse. In other words, the worse the crisis it causes, say Deutsche Bank goes down, the worse the crisis it causes, the quicker the response is going to be, and also the larger the response is going to be from the world central banks to try to prop the system back up and get it back going again. In fact, it could actually be an emergency situation where they are called in to have meetings, maybe even in the middle of the night. Quite seriously, if this is a really big emergency and the world's financial system is seizing up, it could be very much an emergency. Because Deutsche Bank is a too big to fail bank, but we see it failing right now. We don't see anybody stepping into the rescue. I talked about this in great detail in episodes I did earlier. I said that nobody's going to step in to save Deutsche Bank. And we don't see anybody stepping in to save Deutsche Bank. The Commerce Bank, Deutsche Bank merger, I knew when it was happening that it was a last-ditch effort to try to save these failing institutions. It was like a move of complete and utter desperation to try to save these failing institutions because they're too big to fail. But in fact, that whole thing about too big to fail is not really real. Nothing is too big to fail. If we remember the Titanic, they said it was too big to sink. Unsinkable, they said. And the next thing you know, it sank. Well, there is no such thing as too big to fail. This situation could get out of hand rather rapidly. You know, we have to wait and see, but Deutsche Bank is now imminent. They're in imminent danger. Months ago, I was talking about Deutsche Bank going below 6 euros. I said 6 euros is the mark. If it goes below 6 euros, it's going to start to fall fast. And it's going to start to sink. And that was months ago. That's back when it was $13. 13 euros. It was 13 euros back then, or 14 euros. And it was going along pretty good. Right? And I was talking about 6 euros. I said 6 euros is the mark. I still stick by that. 6 euros is the mark. We're now at like 6.28 and dropping. You know? Seriously. This is one huge bank. This is Germany's biggest bank. Their tentacles go everywhere in the financial system. And if they go down, all of those tentacles are going to go out into these other banks, and they're going to all of a sudden show up on these other banks' books as a whole in their books. And then they have to recalculate just how much liquidity they have. It's a short circuit in the system, basically. And just like any short circuit, if you had a big warehouse or something, and you had a big short circuit go through your warehouse, you have to trace it down. And that's exactly what would happen. These tentacles coming off of Deutsche Bank, if they short circuit into these other banks, they're going to have to trace that down, find out what banks are in trouble. They're going to have emergency meetings, the central banks, and they're going to have to find out where liquidity has to be generated and sent to these other banks within the financial system to stop the short circuit and basically get things back up again and running. It could be a dire emergency for the world's central banks. And while all this is happening, you're going to see everything crashing in the world, basically, in the financial system of the world. Everything crashing. The market's crashing. I'm trying to figure out exactly which way gold and silver will turn, because I know that's important to a lot of you guys, important to me, and cryptocurrency too. Which way will it turn in this crisis? And when? I think there's an entire possibility, strong possibility, that immediately after the crisis happens, you're going to see a turn in gold and silver and cryptos, upwards. Because of fear factor, it plays a big part. I think that there's a strong possibility of that, but I'm not absolutely certain. Okay, listen, you guys stay tuned. This is a developing story with Deutsche Bank. Not many of the mainstream is carrying this story just yet, but if Deutsche Bank continues to fall and falter, it's going to become a big story. Possibly in the next week or two. There's a little bit of lag time before they catch on. Watch the stock prices falling on the bank, and they'll catch on all of a sudden. Boom. It'll be like Deutsche Bank. What about Deutsche Bank? Anyway, listen, thank you. I'm rambling on a little bit, but thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe. Hey, listen, guys, give me a thumbs up. I need those thumbs up. It's very important for my channel. Catch you guys in the very next show. Bye-bye, guys.